Hello, everyone. This is Anthony Manna for LA Rams Central. I'm doing the 46th episode today. It is Sunday. The game was played last night. I didn't watch it till this morning. I couldn't wait. I wanted to get on here and do a show right away and prep the LA Ram Oakland Charger game that's going to take place on Saturday. And I know what you're saying, Anthony. It's not the Oakland Chargers. I'm calling them the Oakland Chargers. I don't think they're going to stay in LA. And I'm certainly not going to call them the LA Chargers because get the hell out of our town. Period. Get the hell out. You're not welcome. So it's either going to be the Oakland Chargers or maybe San Antonio Chargers. I can't call them San Diego Chargers anymore, although I may still Freudian slip and do that. Breaking the show down into basically 4 parts. Players that popped, things and starters that must improve, players that I'm watching for the Charger game, and questions and points. I'm also going to throw a 5th one in there. Guys, the 5th one I'm going to throw in there is kind of a review of what I talked about talked about yesterday, in what to look for before the Ram-Raider game, especially when it comes to Jared Goff. I'm going to talk a little bit about that within the players that popped, because if I think nobody popped more on the screen, in my opinion, than these 2 players, Jared Goff and KUPP. So I don't think anybody splashed on the screen more, and I'm including on the Oakland Raiders side of the ball, than those 2. So there's a lot of kudos that I'm going to put around here, but I'm going to break those things down basically into 4 parts, and then we'll do a review for the Ram Charger game at the end. So hope you guys enjoy this. It's going to be a little bit longer segment, something to kind of mull over and think about. I haven't had a chance to look at the comments for the last one. I also, guys, to be perfectly honest with you, I don't know how you guys felt about it, but I personally didn't like the show that I did before the Raider game. It was just not a lot of substance, just a couple of quick pointers and things to point out. But, I mean, I think there was value in that show, but it's certainly not going to be the same type of analysis you're going to get with this one. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Get ready. Part 1 coming up. Okay, so I thought of a few ways that I would go about this. One, I was thinking about talking about things and starters that must improve first, and then go into players that popped, but I can't really wait. I want to get into the players that popped. Guys, I'm going to tell you right now, I have not been this excited about a preseason game since 2001 when the Rams beat the Bills 24-10. Now, for those of you that don't know, that was a year after the Rams lost the NFC wildcard game to the New Orleans Saints, 31-28. Oz Hakeem had fumbled with a chance for the Rams to come up the field and either tie it or win it, and everybody kind of said the same thing, that the momentum was lopsidedly in the Rams' favor at that point. There's no doubt if Hakeem doesn't fumble, the Rams will score on that drive and they will win the game, and go on to play the New York Giants in New York in the divisional playoff game. And I believe firmly the Rams would have been in the Super Bowl in 2000, because I know they would have beaten the New York Giants, and I have no doubt in my mind they would have beaten the Minnesota Vikings. And at that point, you know, you're talking Rams-Ravens in the Super Bowl. But I digress. The 2001 preseason, I had told everybody when Hakeem made the fumble. I remember this vividly. My dad looked at me, and he said nothing. He said absolutely nothing. I think part of him was happy because he knew the Rams could beat his team. And he knew that if the Rams won, they were going to go to New York. But I remember my father putting his hand on my shoulder and saying, you know, I'm sorry. And I looked at him and I said, why? I said, this loss is what's going to catapult the Rams to the Super Bowl next year. No one's beating the Rams next season. Nobody. And I was convinced of it. I was actually more excited about that wild card loss than ever before. And the Week 2 preseason game against Buffalo, they beat them 24-10. I know you're thinking, Anthony, that's really lame. You remember the score? Well, that's part of being a football encyclopedia, I guess. But yes, I remember the score, but more importantly, I remember the game, because the Rams played a complete game in the first half. I think they scored like 17 points, just like this game. It was like 17-7 or 17-10 even. But it was what the backups did the second half that really kind of solidified it for me, and it showed me that the Rams were focused on winning. Now, they lose the next 2 preseason games, and because they played a Hall of Fame game, they got a 5th preseason game, which they ended up winning at the end of the preseason against the Chiefs in a game that didn't matter. So I don't care about the 3-2 preseason mark. It was that game that told me I was right. So rather than talking about bad things, I want to talk about the good things, because I'm really, really, really excited about what I saw. First, I just want to talk about the Rams O-line. A complete 180 from a week ago. A complete 180. We were actually opening holes for Todd Gurley. We were moving the football. Part of that, I think, is Sammy Watkins being on the field, adding a dynamic. I told you guys when we got Sammy Watkins that it was going to take that 8th player out of the box and force the Rams to block the 7 men up front. Now, the Raiders are a really aggressive defense, and they have a really talented linebacking core. Of course, we know Khalil Mack, and we know about the Raiders' ability to put pressure on the quarterback, even with the front 7. But not having to deal with that 8th and final guy in the box allowed the Rams to do more of their 2 tight end sets with Todd Gurley in the ace formation, and maybe even go in shotgun and run a couple of times to the inside or to the outside. So I was really thrilled to see the offensive line when it's even Steven, we're moving the pile, and that's huge. I'm going to say this right now, guys. Cooper Kupp is effing unreal. He is effing unreal. And for those of you out there that were tooting and blowing the Cooper Kupp horn from the moment the Rams drafted him until now, I want you to know you were right. I was wrong. The kid's a stud. It's unbelievable. And somebody had commented in one of my shows, I think it was the Cowboy one, said that your starters are going to be Watkins, Kupp, and Woods. I can't argue. This kid just explodes on the screen. And whether he's running an in route and taking a shot, whether it's diving for that extra yardage to make it 3rd and inches or even first down instead of 3rd and 1 or 2, I mean, it's unbelievable. But what really impresses me is his route running ability. I haven't seen a receiver in a Ram uniform run routes like Cooper Kupp does since Isaac Bruce. And that's major accolade. He's a Hall of Famer. I don't care that he didn't get in this year. Holt and Bruce are going to be in the Hall of Fame. And Cooper Kupp runs unbelievable routes. And he uses his hands and he uses his frame. And he showed it in the last 2 games that I've seen him play. He's clearly been Goff's favorite target, and he's been reliable. It took me a little bit because, again, I'm not one of these people that's just going to sit here and go, everything the Rams does is the most wonderful, perfect thing of all. I had a little bit different idea in who to draft. I still think the Rams would have been better suited to get a lineman. I cannot argue with the Cooper Kupp draft pick. And at this point, Gerald Everett, to me, is still to be determined. I don't know if he was worth a number 2, but to get Kupp in the 3rd round was a steal. And he clearly seems to be the best player to come out of the draft on day 2, and it isn't even close. And guys, I've watched a lot of preseason games this year, okay? I watched a lot of games in week 1 just because I was excited to see football get back. I watched the Seahawks a little bit against, who was it, Minnesota, to kind of see what the competition's doing. I live in Arizona, I see the Cardinals. I watched the 49er game before the Ram game that was on tape delayed for me. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable to watch this kid pop. So for those of you out there that were blowing the Cooper Kupp horn, I got to give you props. This is why I love doing this show, though, because I'm doing this show because I believe that the fan base out there, and not just the Ram fans, the Cowboy fans, the Giant fans, the Bear fans, the Saint fans, the Falcon fans, the Charger fans, 1 through 32, the fans are smarter than we're given credit for. And we know talent when we see it, and sometimes people see talent before others see it, and this is a perfect example. So for you guys out there in the Ramily that were saying, Anthony Manna, you're wrong. You're just wrong, Anthony Manna. I'm sorry. I love your show, but Cooper Kupp's for real. I agree. And he definitely is better than Nelson Spruce, which I'm going to get to Nelson Spruce in a minute because there's I'll get to him later because there's some, from a coaching standpoint, it doesn't look good, and I'll just put it that way. But definitely impressed with Cooper Kupp. So kudos to you guys out there that were blowing that horn early. I tip my hat, okay? You guys were right. I was wrong, and I'll be man enough to admit it. And I am so glad that you were right and I was wrong. And, I thought it was going to take me a few weeks into the regular season to really get a feel for this kid, but he's unbelievable. So enough about Cooper Kupp. I could do a whole show on the way he played. He is effing unreal. I want to talk a little bit about Todd Gurley. I like the way he played. I know he didn't have a lot of yardage, but man, he ran heavy. That touchdown run was big. He carried guys at the line of scrimmage into the end zone, which is something he didn't do last year. The offensive line, you saw what Whitworth can do. He just pushes the pile. He doesn't give up once Todd Gurley's made contact. He continues to block through the play, and that's a credit to the Rams offensive line, and that's an example definitely to follow. Malcolm Brown continues to impress. He continues to run really well. I think he's slowly solidifying that number 2 spot. But I have to say that I think this Davis kid may surpass him. And I'll get to that later. I'm going to talk about Goff second to last. There were 2 other guys that I wanted to talk about before I get to my last 2. Kevin Peterson, the DB for the Rams, made an incredible play, number 47. Made an incredible play on a second and long to come back and knock the ball away. Now, I know he got burned on the following play, but I haven't seen – I mean, that was incredible recovery speed. It reminded me of Todd Light. You know, you think he got Todd Light beat, and then he runs down and makes an unbelievable play at either intercepting it because he studied film so much or he knocks it away. So Peterson definitely looks like he might be here to stay, and I'd like to see that kid grow because he really showed up on – especially in the second half. I like what I saw from him. And I got to tip my hat to Tremaine Johnson. He made a great pick. That catch was harder than people think. He had bodies flying around. He was in zone. He was sitting. He had one eye on the receiver. He had one eye on the quarterback. Guys are flashing in front of him, and he still had the wherewithal to catch the ball and run. Definitely, it's one way to earn your money. So if Tremaine can do that through the course of the regular season, he'll definitely find a payday, either if not for the Rams, certainly for somebody else down the road. So I was really excited about that. I'm going to talk about Sean McVay next. I have to say, as a coach, I'm way more harsh on the head coach than any other player, because I believe that coaches can make mediocre players great, can make great players Hall of Fame players, and knows how to, and then Hall of Fame players they know how to manage and just get consistency out of them. They can make a bad player good, they can make a good player great, and so on down the line, like I just said. And I'm harsh on it because I know how I coach, and I know what to look for. And as I've told you guys before 100 times over again when I do the show, I never look at it from a player standpoint, from a fan standpoint. I've always got my coaching cap on. And there were 2 timeouts that Sean McVay called in the first half that I just marveled at, because you don't see coaches make those calls. One timeout saved a 3rd and short that the Rams eventually converted on the ground, I remind you. Okay? That was a big 3rd down conversion en route to their 2nd touchdown. And then later in the half, he called another timeout to preserve the short field for the field goal, rather than having it be a longer field goal attempt and putting extra stress on Greg the Leg. He simply used the timeout. I think it was under 2 minutes to go anyway. And the thought processes were, what are we waiting for? And we got him, we got to use him. So I really like that. And then on 3rd and long, guys, when you're looking at 3rd and 15, or you're looking at 3rd and 10, and you have a team like the Rams where you have an offensive line that's really good on one side and really weak on the other, and certainly unproven, and based on last year, unproven, there's only 2 calls you make, 3 calls you make. A simple check down pass route. You have guys try to get the first, run to the sticks, but you have a check down. And you tell your quarterback, if the safety stays over the top, don't even wait for the route to develop. Dump it to the check down so we don't get sacked, get some positive yardage, we'll punt and play another day. He did that on the 3rd and 15 play, where they got an 11-yard gain to Todd Gurley and ended up punting on their 2nd series. The other 2 is screen and draw. Ideally, you want to get the first down. They're designed to get the first down, but they're also designed not to. They're just safe plays to preserve field position or gain field position. Because I promise you, punting from your 40 on 4th and 10 is nowhere near as good as punting from your 46 on 4th and 3. Okay? Especially when you have a kicker like Hecker. So, I love that. Finally, one other thing on Sean McVay. How crazy is it that you go from a game where you commit 6 fumbles, recover 4 of them or 5 of them, whatever it was, and then the next week you cut your penalties in half. We only had 3 penalties, okay, with the starters in there. I'm not counting the Joyner one. I'll get to that later. And no fumbles. Not even Davis. To clean up the fumbles in 1 week tells you guys he was committed on Monday to ball control drills. We are not putting the ball on the ground again. And I promise you, they ran. They ran until they puked up their lungs, then were force-fed to eat them back in their stomach, and ran until they threw up the regurgitated lungs again. Okay, I know it's a gross image. It's really disgusting. I'm sorry. Okay, but he ran the dog pee out of these guys. The dog pee out of them, I promise you. You don't see that kind of turnaround in performance on the field in 1 week unless you're committed to fixing it. And I got to give the players credit. They got the message and they did it. That's the making of a great coach. Reach your players, fix the problems that are obvious, and pay attention to detail. He did all 3. And I'm telling you, no one stood out more this week than Cooper KUPP, Jared Goff, and Sean McVay for me. They just exploded onto the screen. I remember watching the game and I'm like, they haven't fumbled the ball once. You don't go from 6 to 0 unless you did what you were supposed to do. But then the players got to do it. So, I mean, even Davis didn't fumble, and Davis still looked good on film. I'm really excited about Sean McVay. He gets it. He's in this to win it. He's not just here to be a 30-year-old coach, gain some experience, at a couple stops, and then become great. He wants to become great now. I remind people, do you know how old Tom Landry was when he became head coach of the Dallas Cowboys in 1960? He was 32. He was just 2 years older than McVay is right now. 32 years old. He was the Giants D coordinator for 4 years. He played in the NFL for 2. He got injured. Back in that day, that wasn't that uncommon. And then became a defensive assistant, and then eventually became a D coordinator. Back in the day, you could become a D coordinator right away. He was probably a player coach anyway at the time that he was playing. I mean, that's how they did things back then. I know Dan Reeves was a player and a coach with the Cowboys in the late 60s before he finally retired. McVay's acting and coaching like he wants to be the Los Angeles Rams version of Tom Landry, and I'm okay with that. I'll take a guy for 30 years, 5 Super Bowl appearances, multiple conference championship games, multiple division titles, and become America's team. But he just really, again, understand. I know some of you are like, whoa, Anthony, slow down. I'm not saying he's Tom Landry. I'm saying he's thinking like he wants to be like Tom Landry. He doesn't want this to be the first of multiple stops before he becomes Bill Belichick. He wants to become Bill Belichick now. And he knows what he has to do it, and it's impressive. Now, I'm going to get to Jared Goff. This isn't an I told you so moment. It isn't. But there's a reason I defended the kid. I told you guys, Jared Goff has to convert 3rd down. He has to be able to make the occasional deep throw. And he just basically has to be smart with the football. Now, he had over 160 yards passing. He had no interceptions. His one touchdown was on the deep ball to Cooper KUPP. He showed the ability to recognize the rush, avoid the hit, and still make a strong. I mean, you think about that throw. They're not going to talk about this on the network, okay? But you think about that throw for a minute. He stepped out. He stepped back, threw off his back foot, and still threw it over the defense, over the proper shoulder in the end zone for a touchdown to Cooper KUPP with the ball on the fly. It wasn't flat. It wasn't anywhere, but dropped in a bucket, as they say. Beautiful throw. Demonstrated his ability to do it. The third down conversion on 3rd and 4 to Sammy Watkins. That was a big completion. But how about this statistic? When Jared Goff was in the game, he was 6 for 8 on 3rd down conversions. Let that sit in there for a minute. He was 6 of 8 on 3rd down conversions. Now, 2 of those were via the ground game. The other 4 was by his right arm. Nonetheless, the Rams moved the chains with Goff under center. He made all the throws, the outs, the deep ball, the medium routes, the zipper in between traffic. He hit the check down when he was supposed to. He threw it away when he had to. The pass that he threw to Higbee that was in the dirt, Higbee was covered. It was over. I think that was the one that preserved the field goal, too. He also made the right audibles. There was a play to convert one of the 3rd downs where he went to the line. He made an audible. He clearly saw the blitz coming, pointed to it, got his O-line to make the correct line call, called a play, and picked up the 1st down. So Goff did everything tonight or yesterday. Couldn't be more pleased with the way Jared Goff played. But there's more to come. The next preseason game against the Chargers is the one where the starters are going to play most of the game. Again, we want to come out injury-free and see the development, but I'm really excited to see what the Rams can put together there. Part 2 coming up. We're going to talk about things and starters that must improve coming up. Okay, so let me give you a couple things first that I think need to improve. And I understand that we didn't have Robert Quinn, and I understand that we didn't have Aaron Donald. But injuries happen, and you have to be able to show depth, and you have to be able to show the ability to do it when your big guns aren't in there, because they're not always going to be there. Pass rush and run defense really needs to improve. We're giving up too much yardage on the ground. Again, I know what you're saying, okay? But I'm including the backups here. Because if, God forbid, Aaron Donald needs a blow and it's 3rd and 3, we can't have a 5 or 6 yard gain on 3rd down to move the chains and now keep them on the field. We need to find ways to stop the run and to get pressure on the quarterback besides the usual suspects. So I thought that needed to be improved for sure. The run blocking definitely improved, but it's a long way, okay? It's a long way from being where it needs to be. We need to see more from the back half of the line in Brown and Havenstein and whoever else is going to be playing there, because we need to be able to run to both sides. Otherwise, teams are just going to stunt to the side that we run the most to, and that's going to create problems because Brown's already proven he can't handle a stunt, especially a slant, where the defender slants across his face to get into the backfield. He's not quick enough at guard or tackle. So now he may improve. They need to get better if this running game is going to truly be effective. I'm going to say it. Tyler Higbee has to improve. Tyler Higbee is not getting open. He is not making himself a target for Jared Goff, and he is too big of a body and he is too physical of a player to not be present. I didn't notice him except for one catch in this game. He did an okay job of run blocking, but he's already weak there. He's mostly a pass-catching tight end. And if he can't get himself open against the defense, and yes, I'm sorry, guys, but look, the Raiders are a Super Bowl pick. If we're going to be great, and if these players are going to be great, they're going to have to figure out how to beat those kinds of teams and those kinds of coverages. And I just didn't see it from Tyler Higbee. Sean Mannion. My goodness, Eric Dickerson, you owe the Ram fans an apology. you owe Jared Goff an apology. You need to step up and say, you were wrong. Goff is better. It was so amazing. Guys, I DVR'd the game. You watch the first half. You watch the second half. Mannion sucks. I'm sorry, but he sucks. And he had the one in the throw that he scored the touchdown on to Josh Reynolds wasn't a good throw. It was underthrown. The defender, which I'll get to later, not only face guarded but pass interfered, and he actually underthrew it, and it was all Reynolds. Reynolds made a great catch on a terrible throw. Mannion probably shouldn't be the 2. I think we need to get a good look at Orlovsky the next 2 weeks, because Mannion has not only not impressed me, but his throws are constantly offline. They're in the dirt. Everything they said about Jared Goff, you can insert Sean Mannion's name in there and go, now that's reality, not what Goff was going through. Because even Goff on his worst day was at least getting the ball there. And Mannion's been in the league for a while. I was not thrilled with him. And for me, we got Orlovsky. If we're going to have 3 quarterbacks on the roster, then let's see if we can free up a roster spot and keep one of them and get rid of the other one. Because if Mannion's our 2, we're in trouble. Because this is the second preseason game in a row now that I've watched, and I've left kind of going, really? Like, really? Just not good. Not accurate. And I understand that, you guys may be high on him, but when you can't hit it out and you can't throw it over the proper shoulder at 10 yards, and guys, go back and watch the game if you DVR'd it. Please do. You'll notice from 0 to 9 yards, accurate. 10 yards or more, it's hit or miss. It's offline. It's over the wrong shoulder. It's over the receiver's head. It's out of bounds. Are you kidding me? So he definitely needs to improve. So basically, guys, pass rush, run defense. I need to see the backups improve there. Tanzel Smart looks really good. I didn't mention him, but he kind of starting to really show up. Tyler Higbee and Sean Mannion need to get better. They need to do their part, and they need to show. Higbee needs to show that he's the number 1 tight end. Because right now, the tight end position, I'm looking at Gerald Everett, I'm looking at Tyler Higbee, and I'm going, Everett had the one good play. Higbee got the first down. Obviously, if I had to compare the two, I'd say Everett had a little bit better of a game than Tyler Higbee, but only because he caught more passes. So I'm hoping to see more out of Higbee against the Oakland Chargers next week. Just going there. Next, we'll come up with players that I'm watching. Actually, I'm going to do players that I'm watching for the next preseason game, and then I'm going to do questions and points to wrap up the show. So keep watching. All right, for the San Diego Chargers. See, I told you I'd do it. For the Oakland Charger game, here are the players that I'm watching. Blake Countess showed up a little bit this week on film. I know he's not going to see the field a lot against the Chargers, but he'll see fourth quarter action and maybe even occasional spell action for the starters when they're getting a blow. I want to see what Blake can do. I want to see him and how he does against 2s and 1s when he is in there. I'll get to Nelson Spruce last. Dan Orlovsky, I've already said I want to see him in the fourth quarter. I want to see Goff go through the third quarter, and then I want Dan Orlovsky to play the fourth quarter, and then let's look at Orlovsky in game 4 of the preseason, and then maybe Sean Mannion as well, kind of get an idea on what we got there. Josh Reynolds looks good. I want to see more of him, and I'm excited to see what he does in the next preseason game against the Chargers. Josh Forrest really showed up today. He makes a great tackle on third down to stuff him and force him to punt on the first series of the second half, which I thought was really good. But Nelson Spruce, guys, has me worried. When you're regulated a punt returner, coaches are trying to find a spot on the field for you. And with the amount of wide receivers that they have and the guys that are popping the way that they're popping, because even Pharoh Cooper, they know Pharoh Cooper can return punts and kicks. They're not even worried about that. They're looking at Nelson Spruce saying, we need to find a spot for you on the field. Otherwise, it's practice squad or cut for you. And that worries me because I like Nelson, but I haven't seen any kind of explosion from him. And he played very sparingly in this game. And when I saw him at punt returner, I'm like, uh-oh, it's not a good thing. And trust me, Nelson knows it. So we'll see what happens there. But I was looking for him all game. Didn't show up, except for a couple moments. So it's looking pretty bad there. So, yeah, those are the players to watch. Nelson Spruce, Blake Countess, Josh Forrest, Darren Orlowski, and Josh Reynolds. Those are guys I'm looking for. They'll probably play in the fourth quarter. I don't think you'll see much of them in the first half. Obviously, I want to see a continuation of what we saw against the Raiders this week, but with the starters. But I want to see what these guys can do now. I'm also looking at Tanzel Smart probably in the next game because he may end up starting. That kid's looking pretty good too. So a couple things to look forward to. But we'll hit the next segment. That's going to be one you don't want to miss. Questions and points. I'm going to talk a little bit about Millen. Okay. I'm going to start with officiating because it was horrendous in this game. And it was noticeably horrendous. Joyner did not commit a penalty on Lee's TD in the first quarter. That was not a penalty. That was shoulder to back as the ball arrived, trying to prevent the guy from making the catch. Not under the old rules, not under the new rules, not under rules they're contemplating in the future. Is that a penalty? And to throw a flag in that situation and not explain it, because I don't know if they were thinking it was pass interference because he was early, if it was roughing, if it was a personal foul. They didn't say it. They threw the penalty. They mocked it. They walked it off, and they didn't say anything about it. And I'm sorry, it wasn't a penalty. Under no circumstance was that a penalty. So LaMarcus Joyner got screwed on that one. Late in the game, there was a delay of game on a kickoff. I'm going to let that set for a minute. On a kickoff. A kickoff. On a kickoff. Delay a game on a kickoff. I've been watching football, guys, since I was 8 years old. 4 years old. 4 years old. I've never heard of a delay game on a kickoff. I didn't even know that penalty existed. A kickoff. Delay game on a kickoff. So they call that. No helmet to helmet. Hit by number 32 on 88, Thomas, on the fourth down conversion that kept the drive alive. No penalty there, right? My wife makes a great point. She's watching the game and she's like, throw a penalty. Even if it's borderline, throw a penalty now and let them know so you set the tone in the preseason, because who cares if it's full of flags in the preseason. Get the message to these guys not to target the head. My wife is right. What can I say? My wife knows more than most people out there that are between the white lines calling games as officials. No brainer to me. She makes perfect sense. Throw a flag. It's helmet to helmet. It's the definition of helmet to helmet, and it got the kid hurt. Because not only did he get nailed in the head, but then his head hit the ground behind him. I think the rule sucks. But if it's the rule, call it. No, that doesn't get called. Delay game on a kickoff gets called, but not that one. And by the way, 32 is a punk. Because earlier in the game, Pharoh Cooper made a great catch, got a good clean hit by 37 on the Raiders. And then as he's getting up, the dude shoves him down from in the head, puts his hand on his head and shoves him down. Right in front of the official. No penalty. Nothing. No. They'll call Joyner, right? They'll call Joyner on the TD to Lee, but they won't call that prick on that play. Oh, and let's not forget the most crucial thing you have to do. You have to call a penalty of delay a game on a kickoff. How about the touchdown to Josh Reynolds? That wasn't face guarding? That was face guarding in 1956, 1957, let alone 2017. That's a penalty. He never turned around and acknowledged the ball. Never. Not to mention he was early, and he actually made contact with the receiver prior to the ball getting there, so you could have called illegal contact. But what you should have called was pass interference and gave the ball at the 1-yard line to the Los Angeles Rams, because you don't know if the kid's going to catch it. Nothing. But delay a game on a kickoff. Are you kidding me? This is the stuff that drives coaches crazy. Because you call that garbage in the regular season, and you're just left scratching your head going, you talk about player safety, and then unless it's the Patriots, Seahawks, Steelers, Packers, Cowboys, or 49ers, you won't call it. You won't call it. On anybody else. Carson Palmer got his knee taken out on a low shot by the Pittsburgh Steelers. I forget the guy's name in 2005. It was a dirty play. He's a dirty pile of trash that had no business staying in the league. He should have been fined and suspended for the postseason on that cheap shot to Carson Palmer. But see, the Steelers are good at that, right? They take cheap shots on the other team when they know it's a tough game. Hoping maybe if he gets injured, hey, it's a benefit to us, right? You just can't do that against the Patriots or the Steelers or the Packers or the Cowboys or the Seahawks, the go-to six. You do that to them, and it's a penalty. We'll make a rule called the Tom Brady rule. We'll find an obscure rule called the Tuck rule that no one's ever officiated by in the history of football before or since. But we'll do it for the Patriots. That's the stuff that drives fans crazy. Because we see it all the time. In the Redskin game, dude picked him up, slammed him down to the ground. Again, I love that. But it's not legal anymore. It's illegal. It's against the rules. You can't physically pick the guy up. 8 officials can't see that? 8 officials can't see another man picking up another human being and dragging him into the ground face first. Can't see it. But delay a game on a kickoff, that one you're on. I digress. What is a catch? What is a catch? I give up. I've said this last year 100 times over again. They're sitting there determining whether or not Lee made a catch for a touchdown. I got no idea. Between Jordy Nelson's drop in the end zone against the Washington Redskins last year in week 10, week 11, or this thing that Lee did, or Des Bryant, or Calvin, I don't know. I give up. You've successfully done it. An official can literally go, I like this team, so that's a catch. And I got no way to refute it because it's so inconsistent across the league. I don't know why you're ruling it a catch or not a catch. Rams and Steelers, last year in St. Louis. Brian Quick makes a great play, right? Gets hit as the ball arrives and drops it. Makes a catch, goes upfield, gets hit, hits the ground, ball pops it out. Incomplete. Even though he made 3 steps, ground can't cause a fumble. But apparently, a ground can cause an incompletion 25 seconds later. I don't know. I don't know what a catch is. It popped up again this week. How dumb and clueless is Matt Millen? I'm being serious. If you guys didn't listen to the NFL Network's replay broadcast where you had to listen to Matt Millen and whoever that woman was that was announcing the game, I don't know her name, clearly from Wisconsin, 25-yard. I couldn't believe it. It was funnier than crap. I'm like, wow, your accent is thick, lady. It is thick. But Matt Millen is a grown adult. Now, we all know Matt Millen's dumb as a stump, right? I mean, the guy is the architecture of the only 0-16 team in NFL history. The only one to do it. He assembled that juggernaut of a football team. He's talking about a player on his team that he's announcing for who knows Mandarin. And Matt Millen says, because he says he speaks Mandarin, he's like, oh, the orange? The orange? The man speaks Mandarin. So your idea is to wonder for a moment if he's referring to the orange. So let's explain. Either Matt Millen thinks the man talks to oranges, okay? Or he thinks there's a language for oranges. Because he's never heard of Mandarin Chinese ever in his life. I'm going to let that sink in for a minute. You have zero credibility already with your stupid analysis and your inability to evaluate talent. He didn't know who a linebacker from Alabama was when he showed up at camp. How were you a general manager? Alabama's like one of the most top premier programs in all of college football. You accidentally know their roster. You don't even have to follow them. No clue who he is. None. Zero. He just showed up on film one day. He really popped on the practice field. Dude is dumb as a rock. And this idiot goes on ESPN, goes on the NFL Network, goes on Fox in the morning before the games, and I'm supposed to take anything this guy says seriously. Like, dude, my 12-year-old doesn't watch football, doesn't know what a 1st and 10 is, can do a better job than Matt Millen. Can do a better job than Matt Millen. My 3-year-old, who makes poopy sandwiches for daddy, knows more than that moron does. Not really poopy sandwiches. Like, he doesn't actually poop and then say, here, daddy's sandwich. Like, he pretends to cook. Okay, I don't know why I'm getting into this, but I feel obligated to explain. Okay, he's not like crapping in a... he's not... No. Okay, I don't think you guys are as stupid as Matt Millen, but I do want to just make sure that we're clear that my son isn't, like, literally making poopy sandwiches. Like, he's pretending to cook and brings an empty plate and says he made poopy sandwiches, okay? I just want to make sure that we're totally, on the same page there, because I think it's important. Because he knows more than Matt Millen does. Like, I'm just like, are you, oh my God. It's just, oh my God. You have to be kidding me. And he's not. And the woman that's announcing at no point calls him out. Like, really? Mandarin oranges? Like, you're 68 years old and you've never once heard the term Mandarin Chinese in your life. Like, that's what you're going to offer this broadcast. And then, like, go to commercial in the middle of the pass because you have to deal with how stupid he just made everybody else for listening. Like, I get it. Let's just watch for a minute, Matt, and let's cut your mic, and you should probably, like, leave the booth forever. Like, that would have been what I would have said. But I'm different. Anyway. So Matt Millen didn't know Mandarin Chinese. when you understand Matt Millen's origins, where he comes from, he was an average linebacker in Oakland, okay, who really benefited in 1980 from a strong team, okay? He was so inconsistent that the Oakland Raider organization was forced to only use him to stop the run. If Matt Millen were to play today in his prime, he wouldn't make an NFL roster because he doesn't know how to cover. Like the Raiders from 1982 till he left the organization in 88 only used him as a middle linebacker in run downs. Anytime it was a pass down, they pulled him out. The San Francisco 49ers did the same thing in 89. I was so glad the Rams didn't get him. They were thinking about getting him, and they didn't get him, and that was a good thing. Then he went to Washington, and it was the same thing. And then he got hurt, and the Redskins defense didn't miss a beat. And then he retired. And then he becomes an announcer, and I remember him saying in 1999, are you ready? This is a Matt Millen quote. Oh, I guess because the Rams are the only 1-0 team in the NFC West. You know, they're the only undefeated team in the NFC West after week one's victory over Baltimore. I guess they're going to the Super Bowl. Like, did it as a joke. Then later, after I think the third game when they were getting ready to play the 49ers, said that this was going to be like 1995 all over again. The Niners are going to come into LA or come into St. Louis and crash the Rams down to reality. That's Matt Millen as an announcer. Fast forward to today, Mandarin oranges. But then you have the coup de grace. You have Matt Millen, the only man to ever assemble an 0-16 team ever. He's the only one to do it. You put that man on TV, I turn it off. Or I mute it, because anything that's about to come out of his mouth makes you all look stupider. Stupider? See? It's working right now. Just talking about him. It all makes you look more ignorant. He's the worst example and the best example at the same time of why I talk about how badly the league is hurting for quality broadcasters. And to start, they need to stop getting former players from the NFL. Whether it's Willie McGinnis on the NFL Network, or Heath Evans, or Troy Aikman, or Matt Millen. These guys suck at what they do. They have no ability to analyze anything. They bring their prejudices and their preferences to the argument. They cannot evaluate talent. They have no patience for being wrong and will be convinced they're right even when they're clearly not. That is all. So, I don't know what else to say. Matt Millen thought the man either spoke to oranges or that oranges had their own language, because he didn't ever know that I knew Mandarin Chinese existed when I was 7 years old. My father fought in Vietnam. The man grew up in the damn 60s. You're telling me you never heard of Mandarin Chinese? Through the 60s and 70s, during the time of Vietnam, never heard of it. Yeah. So, anyway, I just want to make, I knew he was dumb. It blows my mind. It blows my mind. And that's why you guys watch me. And that's why you listen to me. Because I offer something different. Hopefully something more intelligent, and hopefully something more critical and honest. Like my KUPP announcement in the beginning of the show. I can admit when I'm wrong. I'm man enough to admit when I'm wrong. Wish these guys would do the same thing and actually be wowed by talent when it shows up on film, certainly when it shows up on game day. But they don't. But I will. And my commitment to you is going to be that till I shut the show down. So, anyway, guys, make your comments. I got Eric coming on. I won't do a show this week. That's what this is for, prepping for the Charger game. I'll do an analysis after the Charger game, and we'll do our, predictions for the next game. At the same time, I'm probably going to throw in my regular season predictions, and I'll do that show with Eric. I want your comments on this, too. Eric Lewicki is my partner in crime, and I'm thinking about having this show go from just me to a me and him show. Now, it's still going to be LA Rams Central, but it's going to be the two of us together. I want to know if you guys think that's a good idea because you like Eric's analysis, or if you think it's a bad idea, I'm enough, that's all you need. I would appreciate your comments because I do think Eric provides something for the show that is uniquely different, not being a Ram fan, so he's not coming in biased, but he's able to, again, give you another example of just how intelligent the fan base is out there, unlike the announcers who think we're all stupid because they are. So that's a wrap. The LA Rams Central. Next week's show is a big one. We'll prelude the final preseason game. We'll do our preseason predictions. And then I will touch on the final preseason game briefly as I cover the week 1 game against Indy that will be coming to start the season. And that'll be probably the second show that's going to be Eric and I together. So anyway, hope you enjoyed it. See you next week.